Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl are the most hated games in the series. These are remakes of the Gen 4 games, with very little to offer over the originals. What immediately sticks out is the strange 3D chibi art style, which I think looks terrible, especially compared to the high-quality pixel art of the original Gen 4 games. There is not much significant new content here, the performance of the games is buggy and questionable, and it was generally seen as a lazy and low-quality set of remakes. But does this lackluster single-player experience necessarily mean that the multiplayer is bad? Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl did have a competitive scene, and there was some interest for that when it first came out. BDSP OU was playable on the ladder back when Gen 8 was current, and it was a bit of a breath of fresh air at the time. Players were still adjusting to new mechanics in Gen 8 like heavy-duty boots, an item that redefined competitive singles completely, as well as the new teleport pivoting option, new faces like Dragapult, and a sometimes tumultuous metagame with new Pokemon like Galarian Darmanitan and Urshifu causing problems. Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl Competitive offered an old-school experience with modern mechanics. This may sound similar to Pokemon Let's Go Competitive, which had an older Pokédex, less options, but also modern mechanics like Fairy typing and Mega Evolution. But Pokemon Let's Go lacked mechanics like the EV system, allowing you to customize Pokemon's stats and passive abilities, popular mechanics from later games. Some people enjoy this unique combination of old and new, but it was kind of a hard sell for most players. BDSP, on the other hand, at least did still have those systems. It did have EVs and abilities, as well as held items. The Gen 4 Pokédex is available to you, and modern Pokemon are not present. And even though Gen 4 is mostly similar to modern Pokemon mechanically, there are some important differences. There was no team preview back then, while BDSP does have team preview, and of course, the Fairy type is here now. There are actually some moveset cuts compared to Gen 4, there's no hidden power, and some Pokemon have lost important options. BDSP lacks modern item options like Gen 8's heavy-duty boots, and even items introduced in Gen 5 onwards, like Rocky Helmet and Eviolite. These cannot be used at all here. So is there some value in BDSP OU compared to just playing Gen 4 OU? What's actually going on in this competitive metagame? How different is it? What unique options can you find here? Why don't we take a look? Right off the bat, I'll tell you something that I love about BDSP OU. If you're familiar with Gen 4 OU at all, you know that Jirachi is the #1 Pokemon in the game, and it is an infamous Pokemon for its combination of Serene Grace and Iron Head. Iron Head is of course a flinch move with a 30% chance to prevent the enemy from acting at all. Serene Grace doubles this chance to 60%. Jirachi can click Iron Head and have an incredibly high chance to prevent the enemy from playing the game. It is extremely annoying, especially when paired with mechanics like paralysis to prevent action even further. But take a look at this. I'll show you something beautiful. In BDSP, Jirachi cannot learn Iron Head at all. It's illegal. It can't get the move. In fact, Jirachi is significantly worse in this metagame. It's ranked BDSP UU. It's not even that good. It doesn't even get Body Slam, which is its other infamous option, having a 60% paralysis chance. Jirachi is a shell of its former self, and it certainly doesn't help that Steel type got nerfed defensively in modern Pokemon games. Jirachi no longer has neutrality to Ghost and Dark type attacks. It is weak to them. Jirachi can still be used as a bulky Steel type with options like Stealth Rock, U-Turn, and Wish, but this Pokemon is not nearly the metagame force it was in the original Gen 4 games, and I think that's a welcome change. I don't know how intentional this was, if removing Iron Head and Body Slam was something they went in and did manually, but I think that that is a significant change that most would probably be pretty fond of, I imagine. Jirachi is not a popular Pokemon. Now, there are some bans in the BDSP OU format. Obviously, powerful legendaries like Mewtwo and stuff are banned from OU, that's no surprise, but some regular Pokemon are banned too, since many of them keep their later gen abilities. One of the most significant ones is Blaziken, who gained Speed Boost in Gen 5. And in Gen 5, that made Blaziken ban-worthy. The same applies here. The combination of speed boost, swords dance, and incredible firefighting stab is just really powerful, and Blaziken is Ubers ranked in many gens. Not too surprising to see it Ubers ranked here. Manaphy was also initially used in the format but ended up getting banned as a tail glow sweeper with very good coverage and an application on rain teams. It was a bit too overwhelming. This is true to actual Gen 4 as well, because Manaphy is Ubers ranked in Gen 4 too. Latios is also Uber, while Latias is completely legal. That's also true to Gen 4. The most interesting ban is probably the ban of Gengar. Gengar is Uber in BDSP, and that's very unique. It's the first time this ever happened. Mega Gengar is of course banned in Gen 6 and 7, but not regular old Gengar. What's kind of insane is that Gengar still doesn't have Levitate in BDSP. This was a change they made in Gen 7 that maintains here. Its only ability is Cursed Body, which seems terrible, but the metagame around Gengar is so much better for it. There is of course no pursuit in the game anymore. That is a huge deal. That was one of the things keeping ghost types in check in the past. Ghost became a better type offensively as a result of the Steel nerf, and Steel's now being neutral to Ghost instead of resisting it. So those things made just Shadow Ball spam with specs incredibly good and spammable, and the addition of fairy types to the metagame also helped Gengar, as its Stab Sludge Bomb became a very powerful new option that just destroys Clefable and any other fairy type really, so its poison stab and poison coverage is much more valuable. The usual things that would keep Gengar from being too broken were removed, and it benefited from some of the more modern mechanical changes. Not only was its choice spec set incredibly good, with simple Shadow Ball spam being very difficult to deal with, but so was its Nasty Plot set, with Nasty Plot and Substitute. Gengar being a banned Pokemon is certainly a sight to behold, isn't it? But it kinda makes sense when you consider all of that, and the community suspect voted it. It was considered too overwhelming and got banned. And something else that makes this kind of feel like classic Gen 4 is that the number one Pokemon is Scizor. If you played Gen 4 OU a long time ago, you probably would remember that Scizor back then was considered the best Pokemon, or at least the number one Pokemon by usage. Gen 4 was of course when Scizor got its new ability Technician, which was a significant buff, boosting the power of moves with 60 or less power. So that classic Bullet Punch Technician combination first release, as did the move U-Turn, which has Stab on it and is an incredible move. Scizor's Bug Steel typing and general good stats, as well as matching up well into the new Stealth Rock and the Permasand of Tyranitar, just were a perfect storm for this Pokemon, and it became so much better in Gen 4. And in BDSP it's feeling even better than it does in Gen 4 OU. Now, funnily enough, Scizor is a bit nerfed here. It's lost some important options, the most important being Superpower, one of its most crucial coverage attacks. Superpower is a fighting type attack with 120 power and some stat drops. Very important to hit steel types, which you'll notice completely resist both of Scizor's popular stab options. That's a big blow, but not enough to bring Scizor down very much. Most of Scizor's strengths are intact, and with options like Swords Dance and Roost, Scizor is a fantastic and very consistent Pokemon. People are still playing BDSP tournaments. There's something called BDSP Premier League, and in the most recent edition of that tournament, Scizor was number one in usage, which is cool to see, I think. Now, something else unique about BDSP OU compared to the original Gen 4 is that Garchomp is legal to use. If you weren't aware, Garchomp was introduced in Gen 4, but it is banned from OU in Gen 4. It was too powerful back then, as dragons were much better when Fairy didn't exist. Garchomp, with its outstanding stats, vast options, was just a bit too overwhelming at the time. But in the BDSP metagame, this guy does have to contend with fairy types now, so it's not quite the menace that it used to be in the old world. Even then though, Garchomp is unsurprisingly an S-tier Pokemon, sharing the same viability rank with Scizor, and some other Pokemon that we'll get to in a moment. Garchomp did not suffer much from moveset cuts. It still has its crucial option of Stealth Rock, Swords Dance, stab options in Earthquake and Dragon Claw, coverage in the form of Stone Edge, and of course the mixed attacking options that it often likes to use. including Draco Meteor, Fire Blast, and that's kind of enough for Garchomp to maintain its excellence, its unsurprising excellence. It did lose some options like Aqua Tail, but nothing too dire. Garchomp is mostly about the same as it is in modern games, and I'm sure it's no surprise to hear that that is really good in this format. The other S-ranked Pokemon alongside these two are Heatran and Weavile. Something I've not mentioned yet is that the buffed knockoff is actually not an option in BDSP OU. Weavile does not get this option, but it's still an incredible offensive breaker and a fast physical threat. And it does have Icicle Crash. That is a new move that did make its way to BDSP. This is a form of physical coverage with a flinch chance on top, much better than Ice Punch, that also doesn't make physical contact. And that's a significant extra benefit to this move over Ice Punch, which is formerly the best Ice Stab Weavile had. Now, Fairy-type Clefable is available here, which I'm sure sounds like a nightmare, a king of modern gen competitive ever since it became a Fairy-type. And of course it was a top tier back in Gen 4 too, even as a normal type. But Clefable also lost some significant options here. Clefable also can't use Knockoff, which is an enormous deal. That was its best utility move in Gen 4, and is still commonly used in later gens too, like Gen 6. Without Knockoff, Clefable doesn't have that free click it used to abuse, and is way worse. Knockoff is still buffed in BDSP. It has the higher base power and the bonus damage of modern games, but it is significantly less wide distributed, as you can see with Weavile not getting it and Clefable not getting it either. I think that is a great choice to cut the distribution of Knockoff, to be honest. I think that's something that they did right. I don't know how intentional it was, but it's a good balance choice. Clefable not having Knockoff is a huge deal, as that was one of its most important utility options. The guy also doesn't get a direct healing move, or at least not the one it used to use. It doesn't get Soft Boiled. Instead, Clefable has to rely on Moonlight, which is quite a bit worse, only having 8 PP and being weather dependent. Another thing that Clefable lost is Toxic. A bunch of stuff lost Toxic here, and Clefable being one of them. So Clefable is much worse. Now, it's not that much worse, to be honest. It's still a fairy type with Magic Guard, and Moonlight is still a form of healing. It's good enough. It has other great options in its move pool, but I like the fact that Clefable no longer has these really risk-free, progress-making options like Knockoff and Toxic. It's actually some pretty cool nerfs to Clefable here, making it feel a bit more manageable. You may notice that so far, someone important has not been mentioned. What of Tyranitar, the other king of Gen 4? Considered just as metagame defining as Jirachi, with its permanent sand, pursuit, and incredible set variety. Well, in BDSP OU, Tyranitar is also a shell of its former self. Not only is sand not permanent anymore, hasn't been for a while, the guy no longer gets pursuit, it doesn't get knockoff like it does in Gen 9, and overall it's quite a bit worse. It's still used sometimes, it still has great stats, Dragon Dance, good coverage, and options like Stealth Rock, Taunt, Choice Band sets, etc. But the earth-altering impact it used to have is no longer here. This is a far worse Pokemon. It's all the way down in the B- rank on the viability rankings. That's kind of sad to see, actually. And Tyranitar not really a part of the metagame. Occasionally seen, but significantly less than it used to be. So what we see at a glance in BDSP OU based on the Pokemon available is that it does feel familiar. All of these are Pokemon that were available in Gen 4. Much of the meta is similar, but there are some new faces that were previously not allowed to be used, like Garchomp and Mew and Latios. Some of the familiar faces lack key options. There is Team Preview, there is Fairy typing, and even though a lot of people may have the automatic opinion of, well, why wouldn't I just play Gen 4 OU? As we can see, this metagame is pretty different. Some of those differences are bad things, like moveset options cut completely, but some are good things. Some of these moveset cuts make sense from a balance perspective, especially cutting Iron Head from Jirachi. Team Preview kind of gives you a bit more agency in early decision making. You can see their team, you can choose a lead based on what they have, whereas in Gen 4 you are locked in to your lead and you can't see any of their team on turn 1. They have to reveal their Pokemon to you. Some people enjoy this aspect of no team preview, but others might not. This completely changes the experience. And it also means that Gen 4's chaotic lead metagame is no longer really happening here. In Gen 4, since your lead is locked in, it's often about running something fast that can make Stealth Rock quickly and then dying, or running something that hits other Stealth Rock leads and just attacks quickly. It can be a difficult thing to navigate. Team Preview completely mitigates that and gives you more options to lead with, rather than being locked in, and kind of going in blind. Some people may also think that the presence of Fairy type is a welcome addition. Back in Gen 4, Dragon types were infamous. Spamming Outrage and the high-powered Draco Meteor were incredibly powerful strategies, with counterplay often being limited. Yes, Steel does resist Dragon, but Dragons are powerful Pokemon with the ability to brute force their way through. Fairy types were added specifically to mitigate this issue, and even though some people think that Fairy types themselves are a bit broken, they did make the type chart feel a bit more balanced overall. And I'll be honest, the idea of, the modern type chart plus no knockoff or boots is interesting. These 2 new additions significantly changed the experience of competitive singles to be much more about item gameplay and knocking off enemy items and just that free form of progress. Now, some things still get knockoff, but it's cut significantly. It's way less common, and it's just less of a part of the game. So why don't we take a look at some interesting sample teams you can use in BDSP OU. The first one that caught my eye, and literally the first one that you see, is this Volbeat Rain team, built by the player Boopy Bappy. Volbeat is such a cool choice as a prankster Pokemon with Rain Dance. In BDSP OU, Drizzle is banned from being used, so you have to manually set Rain the old-fashioned way with Rain Dance. And using Volbeat actually kind of makes some sense. Prankster grants priority to non-attacking moves, giving Rain Dance the ability to move first most of the time. With a Damp Rock equipped that lasts 8 turns, you can U-turn out to your rain threats, and Volbeat also has the useful utility of Encore and Thunderwave. As a rain setter in a world without a Drizzle user, this is a pretty good one with a little Swiss Army knife of utility options, and a consistent way to set rain on the field. What's fun is that this Damp Rock Rain Dance archetype is one that you would see at Gen 4 OU, and it's my personal favorite team style in Gen 4, I think. Gen 4 Rain is pretty fun. It's cool to see it revitalized in a bit of a new way, with Prankster Volbeat being a completely new option that wasn't available back then. We're seeing some of the usual suspects that you see on Rain teams. Kingdra with choice specs, of course. Unsurprising. Quillfish as well, as a physical Swift Swim Pokemon. This was seen pretty commonly at Gen 4 OU. Azumarill is a fun new face though. Azumarill did exist back then, but it was not a Water Fairy type, because of course Fairy didn't exist. And having a Fairy typing here on a Rain team is pretty nice defensively, isn't it? We've got this Belly Drum set, which you never used to see back in the day. And Mew, of course, being a Pokemon that was banned back in Gen 4, now totally legal, perfectly balanced as well. And this is a Pokemon with incredible moveset variety, obviously, so it has Rain Dance and Damp Rock, as well as Taunt, Stealth Rock, Explosion, just to fill the gaps of the team. And we, of course, have Scizor, which is also carrying Rain Dance and U-Turn, and just being a good Pokemon, because in Rain, Fire-type damage is nerfed, which is Scizzor's one weakness. It's generally great. I think this team is incredibly cool. It shows the uniqueness of BDSP OU a little bit. And it's a perfect example of mixing old and new, with this Damp Rock Rain Dance is an archetype that existed in Gen 4, and it's one you never see in modern times because Drizzle is legal, so this is certainly a very unique sort of team. Here's another cool team that you would probably never see in any other metagame. Look at this humorous combination of 6 fellows. We've got a Feraligatr Mismagius Hyper Offense team. Feraligatr has kept much of its modern buffs, and in this more stripped-back metagame, that actually feels pretty good. In fact, Feraligatr is ranked OU in BDSP. I think that's a first for Feraligatr. It has Sheer Force, which it gained in Gen 5, keeping it here. One of the best offensive abilities you can get, granting 1.3x power to any attack with a secondary effect, while nullifying the effect. Feraligatr has plenty of options to receive that Sheer Force boost with. Waterfall, Ice Punch, and Crunch all get the boost at the cost of their secondary effects. And Feraligatr gets Dragon Dance to boost itself up. This is a fantastic water-type physical threat in the meta. And isn't that just a fun sentence? Feraligatr is a fantastic physical threat in a competitive metagame. Mismagius is also here, and this is something you would sometimes see in Gen 4 OU as well. The new evolution for Misdreavus with superior stats. Since Gengar is banned, Mismagius is the next best alternative for a Ghost-type special attacker. Its stats are quite a bit worse, but with 105 special attack, that's good enough to take advantage of Shadow Ball spam, which, as we talked about before, is really good. You know, you see that in modern gens too. Dragapult, that's his whole thing. Mismagius still has Levitate, which is useful, makes it immune to spikes and ground moves and stuff, and it has a good special move pool, so Mismagius is more viable than it is in most gens here. For lack of much better in terms of ghost attackers, it's probably the best one, actually, with the absence of Gengar needing to be filled. And here's an example of a more balanced spikes team. A really significant new option is Magic Guard Alakazam. Alakazam did not get Magic Guard back in Gen 4, and this is, of course, way better than its previous Synchronize. It's immune to all indirect damage. It's one of the best abilities ever. So Life Orb is incredible here. You're completely immune to the recoil. It's all upside. Alakazam's really good in BDSP OU, much better than it was in Gen 4. This is just a fun, balanced team, don't you think? Infernape is a good option, straightforwardly. It was good in Gen 4 OU, and it's good here. And Infernape is having a better time without permanent sand ruining its whole life. You've also got Roserade, who is a nice grass-type spike setter with Sleep Powder. And of course Poison Heal Gliscor, an option that also didn't exist in Gen 4. Some might be upset to learn of this. Not necessarily a popular Pokemon, but hey, it's here. And of course it's good, because it's got Poison Heal, one of the best abilities in the game. BDSP OU is a little bit inaccessible. There's no ladder for it on Showdown. You can only really play it in Discord communities. And like many obscure niche Pokemon formats, it has a bit of a marketing issue. It's hard to sell people on the idea of, you know, modern Pokemon with less options. People often want more options. You know, Dexit was unpopular. To the average gamer, this is not going to sound appealing, but I think it is a unique metagame. It's interesting. It was fun to check back on it, take a look at the usage stats, the VR, and see some unique teams that can exist in this one-of-a-kind format that blends old and new in a way I think is interesting. I think that the OU metagame for this format is much better than the underwhelming and unpopular single-player experience for these games might suggest. And there is a small dedicated community for this format. What do you think though? Do you think this sounds appealing to you? Do you like the things that are different from old Gen 4? Do you maybe prefer the classic games and the classic Gen 4 OU experience? Let me know down below in the comments, and thank you for watching.